Hi everybody, welcome to the Esports Research Report, and we have a special edition today. I am Dr. Brian McCauley here at the Media Management and Transformation Center in Jönköping, Sweden, at the actual city of DreamHack.
Hey everyone, I'm Dr. Stephanie Orm from Emmanuel College in Boston in the United States. And today we've got another great segment coming right from our conference that we hosted with the University of Paris in November. And this one is all about a really important topic to us, mental health in esports. So we'll be hearing from Martina Čubrić, who's an esports and sports psychologist for MADLions, Mia Stellberg, an independent esports and sports psychologist, Sébastien Debs, a Dota 2 player, pro player, I should say, from OG Esports, and was the back-to-back winner of the International. The panel was moderated by our own Tobias Scholz from the University of Siegen. And again, I'm really excited for y'all to get to dive into a really great conversation by some powerhouses on that topic. So enjoy.
Okay, welcome everybody to the day 2 of the ERN conference. My name is Tobias Scholz from the University of Siegen, and I have the honor to moderate this important panel on mental health. Before I'm introducing myself or introducing the experts, I would mention why am I here. So my background is in HR, human resources. So I'm one of those people who tell, focus on your mental health. And also as an academic, I'm not doing a good job at my mental health. So I'm really happy to have people with me that are far more knowledgeable. So first of all, we have Mia Stellberg, who is a professional sports psychologist with almost 20 years in experience. And I think one of the first psychologists working in, at least in Counter-Strike, back in 2016 with Astralis, and helped OG to win some world championships. And I found a beautiful picture on her page with her standing behind Seb, who was lifting the international trophy. So that's quite perfect, as the other one is Sébastien Debs, who probably everybody knows. And if someone is not knowing him, shame on you. What are you doing here? So he recently retired from Dota 2, but he is part of the team who did the miracle of becoming back-to-back winner in the international in Dota 2, which will probably nobody ever achieve ever, at least I think so. But he is staying around in esports and will share his massive knowledge with us, and that's something where I'm quite happy about that. And last, Martina Čubrić, also sports psychologist, and also for a long time in the esports ecosystem. I saw that you are for 4 years at MADLions in January. So also massive knowledge about that. And and what I found interesting on her LinkedIn profile, that she also wants to apply her knowledge to the business sphere. So that is something where I'm completely on board. All of that knowledge can be transferred to the business context as well. So that's the short introduction, and I want to give Mia the first introduction for what is actually mental health and why is that so important?
First and foremost, good day to all of you, and thank you for having me. I'm excited to join the panel. So to add on the sport psychology side, I am also a clinical psychologist. So in that sense, the first 10 years of my career was very much around mental health and well-being diagnostic work and psychotherapy. So in that sense, I have seen many different aspects of the well-being. How we could then integrate that into the gaming world is, first and foremost, the organization itself needs to be functioning in a sustainable way, which means that mental health is already in the values. And mental health in gaming means and looks like exactly the same as it looks like in any kind of environment. in traditional sports or in companies or organizations or even on students. So mental health doesn't vary depending on the situation. All humans are alike and they have very similar needs. So in that sense, we know what we are after. What a psychologist then does in the gaming environment and in the team environment, first and foremost, it is about psychoeducative information. We need to express what it feels and what it looks like to cater and manage their well-being, and also how it affects the performance. So it is about teaching people, it is about asking questions. And I think one of the most important things that what I can do for a team or a player is to pinpoint and follow up on the well-being, that it would be something that we are following up on an every day. So we are planning the schedule according so that it benefits and make sure that we are functioning sustainably. Excess and young people do tend to match. So in that sense, quite often the people in the gaming industry are young, and therefore they are perhaps in their first professional encounter with an organization. And it doesn't matter if you're a player or if you're the staff, quite often people are in their early 20s, in their early 30s. So teaching them to have a healthy relationship to work and to have a healthy relationship of what expected of them and how we are executing things. So detachment from work, work-life balance, overall well-being, sleep, everything that comes from the recovery side of things. And then, of course, quite many successful players tend to have a little bit of a perfectionism there. So it's also about understanding that it is a selected group of people that are usually very successful in the gaming industry. So if you were to be an extremely intelligent and perfectionist, that adds up to 90% of my clients. And that again is a certain kind of a risk factor. Yes, it does enable success, but therefore we also need to make sure that there isn't too much going on and we have a healthy and a good balance with the teammates, with the game itself, and in also the expectations around that. First, we would also apply that the positivity is there so that we have more positive interactions on a daily basis with the people and what we are doing with. So for me, it's small steps, it's everyday steps, and it is about functioning sustainably and making sure that we are preventing problems. I, as a psychologist, I'm always about preventing instead of fixing problems, because if we do have a problem, we already have failed. So in that sense, put it short, mental health looks like exactly the same thing on the gaming side as it looks on any other side. And the prevention there, the sustainability there, and psychoeducative information to these young people at the earlier stages of their careers to find a good work-life balance. That was my 5 cents.
Awesome, quite fascinating. Martina, maybe a bit more into the esports context then?
Yeah, great. Thank you for having me, first of all. And Mia did a great introduction, of which I took many notes that are really relatable to what I've been seeing as well. Talking a lot about these systems of performance as systems. So in the teams, how do we set up this team culture, which I like to talk about very much, so that I've worked a lot with rookies, so that we actually create already the foundation of the house, so that when they get in, they can actually have structure around them, because we're talking about esports, and esports is a lot about chaos. So if we, as I would call it, as a company, don't have these structures already set up before we invite people inside, then we find ourselves in a problem, right? And this is what I like Mia saying about prevention, about working ahead, about being one step ahead. And for that, I always put at the forefront the staff, starting with the coach, already involving the managers, and having all of this performance department, as I like to call it, to actually set up good environment for players who are about to come. So I mentioned I had most experience with rookies, and for me, that's the most entertaining. I think teams are the ones with rookies, because then I can see along the last 3-4 years, how the rookies have been changing. And I'm very grateful to see that some of the things that have been coming from, I guess, this community of health in esports have been sticking to young people's minds. So I can see already in this generation how there is a big difference. I'm sorry. Okay, this had to happen. 1 second. All right, back. I've seen that there's a difference in how the rookies are seeing the esports and how being a professional esports player is. So they already know some things about mental health. They already know some things about physical activity. And that helps us in the performance department to have these first steps with them, right? So they're not tabula rasa. They're not empty when they come. So we have some already level at the beginning, and that helps greatly, because in the end, it's about day-to-day work, and it's about setting the culture in a day-to-day. And this is the actions of all of us combined. So us as health experts, as performance psychologists, we have, I think, a great say in how can we set up this team culture in helping the staff, starting with coaches, to actually be mindful and aware of everyday actions, of activities, of schedules, of periodization, something that is very hard to do with all of this chaos of schedules in esports. But in the end, it really has a big impact on the mental health. It has a big impact on the performance, something we always need to relate it to, because the first thing that rookies come and tell you is, okay, but how can this help me in the game? All right. And then we need to already start this negotiation process. It's a lot about negotiating as well. And in the end, create some really great foundations for the house in which players can develop as professional esports athletes and as well as people.
Great, quite interesting observations, especially the idea that rookies are having some knowledge at least. And that's something probably Seb can also talk about. I mean, you have a long career and you saw the changes over time, not only that it is becoming a more stressful job, but also how the companies are changing and all. What are your intakes on that?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you very much for having me. Happy to be here, happy to have the discussion. So topic very close to my heart, because, I mean, as you kind of hinted, back when I started, there was very little awareness. That was probably 10 to 15 years ago, the competing. There was very little awareness, very little structure and kind of framing around the mental health. Just the fact, I was actually telling myself, just the fact that we're having that conversation today is like, it's already been, you know, quite a long road to in the right direction, because mental health, as far as I'm concerned, is really what's gonna be the game changer, the difference maker in high level competition, because you do get to a place where all players are almost equally talented, teams are functional, but then it's really gonna come down to the mental side of things, and how it has been prepared, how it's able to deal with the high pressure that comes with the tournaments, and all of that. And I think it's a particularly tricky topic in esports for different reasons. I mean, from my experience, there is maybe less opportunities in esports than in sports, I would say, to express the energy, whether it is positive or negative, you know, the frustrations or the excitement, to express it in the competitive time frame, because obviously it's a lot about precision, about reactions. So these emotions, you have to bottle them up, and you have to learn how to deal with them, how to control them in the healthiest way possible. And I would say that when you reach the highest level of gaming, it probably meant that you spent a very large amount of time in front of a computer by yourself. So I'd say that in most cases, from what I've seen, most frequently players are pretty bad at managing their own emotions and dealing with them. So this is when the staff around the players are really the true game changers. I think people largely underestimate the impact of whoever helps and supports the players with the mental health and the mental side of things.
So what are things where the staff here, Mia and Martina, can actually help? I mean, what Seb is talking about, this high pressure, I cannot imagine how high this pressure is. It's even too high for me on amateur level. So what are your immediate tips to at least help them like a Band-Aid?
Well, if I may go first, I would reply to that one of the important things is actually teaching people how to talk. So a big part of my job is to enable good dialogue within the team, amongst the team members and the staff, and also giving tools for people to start expressing themselves. So we all do have emotions, but do we know how to give them a name, what this thing inside of me is actually, what it looks like, what could we call it, and also how can I share it? So in the earlier stages, it's about that. And the funny thing is that then in the between, there is a gap where we are trying to adapt to pressure, where we are trying to establish a good self-esteem, when we are trying to, give them the tools for maximizing the performance. And then again, when we go to the absolute highest top, to the 1% of the elite, then we go back to communication again, which is, for me, it's really fascinating to see. So in the earlier stages, we need to learn that. In the middle stages, there's a different kind of a toolbox. And then again, when we already have everything, fine-tuning things comes within the dialogue, either with the coach and the players, or the players with themselves, or in between, or the staff around it. So it's a very valuable topic, in my opinion.
If I may add to that, there is a great importance in the beginning to find these pressure valves. What are for you the pressure valves that you need to release on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, that will help you actually cope better with these pressures? Because pressures are not going to get lower. Pressure is inside of your mind to start with, right? And it's about what toolbox you have ready to actually cope with this. And also, how do you take care of yourself on a day-to-day basis? So this is something that players are not going to come forth first. This is not something that they will do by themselves. So again, I come back to the structures and what do we as performance health experts actually provide with the systems, with some kind of habits, with suggestions. I don't like to call them tips in the end, because tips are usually used once or twice. So we like to make them into habits, and in the beginning, really work on that with them. That's something I noticed. One thing is when a person learns to do mindfulness or meditate, but the other thing is to do that on a daily basis, right? And I know that all my players know how to meditate, know how to breathe. They have learned this. But now, if they're going to do that on a daily basis, at least in the beginning, not so much. So we need to be there. We need to be present. We need to be active, take initiative to actually do these things with them, so they become a normal part of our day-to-day. So there is no complaints, moaning about, why we're doing this, because they notice how they release the pressure. They notice how much more prepared they come to the official game, to the scrim, right? And also another thing about dealing with this pressure is, how do we as a group take this official game, take this scrim? How do we relate to mistakes? Which has to do with communication, right? So how do coaches respond to when a player makes a big mistake, right? This is also something that we need to have conversation with the staff, with the players. What is our way of dealing with these things? So in practical terms, basically thinking of scenarios, what can happen and what are our solutions to those scenarios, so that the players actually feel prepared. I have something that I can use when this happens, all right? And most of the times, many more things happen, but at least some things that we can think of, we are already prepared to handle. So that has to do a lot with these mini meetings, conversations, setting up these solutions and having the tools ready. And this starts, I think, from the staff, and it builds up and it expands to the players as well. And we just need to be doing that day after day after day. If we skip a day, if we skip a week, already we're not talking about habits, we're talking about, tips and tricks, right? But we actually need to be doing that. And in the beginning, together, everyone as a staff, as a team, and create that into habits, create that into something that is part of our day-to-day.
That is quite interesting, as I'm picking just a question out of the chat that goes to that, and also something we had yesterday the whole time. This from Marquis in Spades. The idea we addressed yesterday on many panels that the main issue is to convince the athletes to do that. Like the idea that Hans Sama didn't want to eat avocados, now he's eating it because the chef did trick him. I don't know in the end, but did something. But what would you say? I mean, especially nutrition ergonomy, that's the part what we did yesterday. Yes, we need to change habits, but it's how do you convince the players? Maybe how did Mia convince Seb to do all that? Although I think just tell him and he understands it, but how to convince them, how to get this buying in. As you say, they are perfectionists, and doing something for my mental health is not doing grinding and all. So how do you convince them in the first place?
Maybe I can start with this time. So for that, the thing is we need to understand how does the profile of a professional esports player look like, and what are the experiences that they're based on. Just in one word, I would say that the whole world is fast-paced, and that the results are what we seek right now. There is this the instant gratitude that we need to delay the gratitude basically for whatever we are doing, especially in the health topics. There are few things, like for example slow-paced breathing, that can make an effect in the moment, but many things we're looking for long-term benefits. We're looking for, the word is sustainable practices that will actually bring you some benefits. But then we have an esports professional gamer, right? And they want it here and now. So what my strategy always is to start with something really small, and that is rewarding. So we can't expect that a person who has been eating for 10 years comes and sits on a table and enjoys the fish. I haven't seen that at least. Or starts to, I don't know, have exercise every day when for 10 years they have been training different habits. And I call them habits because in the end, this is what they become. So starting really small, making it rewarding, having like constant positive feedback about you're doing well, and showing them in a way that we can strategize and think in so many ways. Okay, how is this impacting you? One of the ways of showing them is actually engaging in conversations, because many times they don't stop to think and say, how does this affect me? What is the way that, this helps me? They just run through it, right? So sometimes just asking a question can help them many times to understand, all right, this actually does something, this is what helps me. So creating like super small things that they can integrate in their daily habits and making them rewarding, either by positively reinforcing them, either by asking these questions so that you can help them understand. But it needs to be minimum time investment for maximum output. Everyone loves that, right? And it needs to take the least of their time, right? We can't just expect to come there and I have all the answers for your performance and your health. Just listen to me. And no title is going to give you that. You can be a doctor, whatever. They don't care that much. So we need to start really small and build up. And this is how they actually open up. As soon as they understand that you're not there to steal their time, you're actually there to maximize the outputs and optimize it. This is where you're already starting to lower this resistance that always exists in the beginning.
So Seb, how was you convinced? How were you convinced?
It was Mia, so it was easier perhaps. But I think as for myself personally, maybe I already had some sort of awareness, but I've worked with many players and younger ones. I say young because I do agree to what has been said earlier. It's sometimes more common with the younger ones that had less experience competing, because but I mean, it's true all across the board, right? Like, not to generalize, but basically we're using keywords here in terms of, like, you know, raising awareness, helping them notice certain things, because when you go through a career, you get to know yourself better, like the competitor that's inside you. You get to know your limits. You get to know what burns you out, what doesn't. You know, how long can you practice, or what are the breaking points in terms of work schedule, in terms of communication, in terms of emotions you can cope with. And basically, as you get to know yourself better, you start knowing your limits, and this is when experts can come in and help you push these limits even further. And that's something very attracting for a player. It's like, oh, I can be a stronger version of myself. I can now practice a little bit more, or I can, in terms of time, but also maybe I can get more out of my the schedule I already have. And now this is just more means to become better quicker, because obviously that is the goal that every player is chasing. Is like, how do I maximize my performance? And mental health has a lot to do with it. So to me, I think what really ends up convincing players is understanding that the goal for that is still to peak in terms of performance and in terms of results. And sometimes you have to do some things that are counterintuitive. So obviously you have to get them to understand that maybe you're going to have to give up a little bit of your practice time in order to actually improve, which of course sounds counterintuitive at first. But once that is established, then I think this is how you get all their attention and all their energy. You have to truly buy into what they're trying to achieve, help them understand that you get it, you understand it, and you're going to work with them towards the same objective. And now, as much as you trusted them, they will have to trust you back, and let you help them, basically.
That's
And I would
fascinating.
also-
Yeah, sorry. Just wanted to go to you as well in terms, because it's something where it needs time, right? Mia?
Yes, sir, it does. And also what I've had the pleasure of noticing that when I'm working with organizations that are functioning sustainably and in their core values is the mental well-being, such as OG Esports, it's very much of an easier surroundings for me to work. So when I'm hired, when I'm recruited, I am actually there to do my work, and there's room for that, and they're expecting an impact. So in that sense, there's already the demand and the ask for that. I have an experienced resistance in these organizations that have the solid foundations of working sustainably. And also, like a person like Seb, who already knows so much about psychology and human behavior and is very enlightened about the topic. So sometimes we have like discussions where I'm equally learning as much from him as he would hopefully be learning from me. So it's not about me being an expert of something. It's more about integrating into the team and being very tangible and just being there on an everyday basis, and also respecting the players and trusting them, and hopefully they will do the same to me. So if I'm then saying something, that I'm noticing something, that's then trusted and respected as an opinion that might then lead to some sort of an action. So it's also quite much work through your own personality. I can never work through a title. I'm working through my personality and my respect to the people, which then I quite often receive back.
It's what I find or the interesting part is, especially as we have here Dota 2 and Counter-Strike Go experts, how, yeah, in the end, I mean, you need to have some time for that. But if you look at the Counter-Strike schedule, there is no time for anything. I mean, Dota 2, you still have, okay, at the end, there's the international. You can work towards that. But how, it's something just from the outside. I never worked with a Counter-Strike team. How to deal with that when you, or do that in a sustainable way if the system is the opposite of sustainable?
As an expert, I can't affect on how the scene works. So for example, regarding Counter-Strike, we all know then that that's the organization that are hosting the events. Then there's Valve, there's so many other corporations that are involved. So yes, we do know how to work sustainably, but for the entire ecosystem to function well, it requires everyone having equally minded, agreeing on certain topics, which then would be perhaps player well-being, because these are young talents and we need to value them and make sure that we are functioning in a way that nobody ever retires because of a burnout. So then I would challenge also everyone who works in that environment and in that ecosystem to actually share those values for them to be seen.
I'd like to add a comment. Go, Seb.
No, please go ahead.
Okay, just whenever you mentioned the CS schedule, I was like, here we go, my loveliest topic. I mean, the word is adaptation, and what Mia is saying, like, you can't control what's happening there, but you can expect a lot of chaos. And I mentioned like structures, right? So we try our best to schedule, to make these activities, to put everything in some kind of time frame, and then you lose or you win, and it changes everything. You don't know what's happening next. Then there's an invitation to another tournament. Then we play 2 tournaments at the same time. One is LAN, one is. You can't expect so many things happening. So basically, with a smile on, you need to continue adapting, right? Because the frustration can get to you there. Like, you make all these perfect plans. Great, we can do this and that and this. And then the coach is like, okay, we start in 15 minutes. Wow, okay. And then tomorrow we have 2 games. Oh, we won. Then we have a best of 3. Sometimes I'm like, just tell me when is the next game and I can start planning accordingly. So I do agree that we need to have some kind of ideal schedules, ideal periodization in our minds, but then it comes to juggling all of these balls, and usually all of them are in the air, right? So we need to be also a really good coordinators in how can we better adapt, how can we have a small activity that we can put in 5 minutes here, that we have a break now, because I don't necessarily agree that there is no time. I think that there is time, but we can't know when. So what we basically need to do is, in a spontaneous way, having all of these activities or things that we can do with players ready for whatever time frame we have ready and available, right? And then we just need to jump in, and this is about being present, like Mia said, being on the spot, being with them, being a part of these happenings, you know, suffering the same chaotic schedules, having to change yourself as well. And then you're all in the same boat, and we're all experiencing the same thing. And we're here to, you know, thrive through this, not survive, to thrive, right? And this is about being really readily available and jumping in with the different ideas you have whenever there is a little time frame available, right?
It's very crucial, and I think despite the scheduling problems, once awareness is raised, teams and players will find time, just like they always find time for practice, for instance. Because I want to maybe use an analogy as like you try to get somewhere and build yourself a career in sports, for instance, that includes physical performance. When you practice, your body tells you what your limits are. It's like, I can tell that my muscles are now hurting, or I injured myself maybe because I pushed too far. So this is something that's kind of, it comes with the package of how far can I push myself. the analogy in esports is very different. It's like, when does a player know that he pushed his mind too far? That now he, his brain is hurting, his mind is hurting, his emotional capacities are hurting, and maybe he injured himself too. Of course, that's an image, but it does get to that point where a player pushed it too far, and now his self-esteem is in shambles, or his confidence, collapsed completely. Or it could even be his capacity to control his emotions, and therefore his ability to be a good teammate is like temporarily disabled, if not forever, sometime. So players do have to learn these limits, and they truly need help in esports to learn them. Because the thinking I have done on that too, like reflecting on my own kind of path, was that since you spend more time practicing by essence, because the signs of where the practice should start and why it should stop are less clear, because of, and that's like a vicious circle, because you spend more time practicing, meaning you have less time to confront yourself with others, whether it is your close ones, and then of course the organization and the staff. So you have less outside opinion of like, you pushed it too far, or this is where you should maybe look at another approach. Therefore, players really have a very low awareness, I would say. So it is really helping them enter a new dimension when they do realize that, oh, indeed, when their help kind of being put words on, indeed, I did end up feeling like that, and this is why. And I think truly when you get them to that point, then they will fully be on board, and there will be a demand now, and they will make time, because they will understand that this is very efficient practice time, actually. Like, this is helping them more than them just practicing their reflexes, their technique, or even strategizing with the team. All of these aspects now become as important.
It's fascinating to hear, because something I'm always struggling in my mind is, why is the retirement age that low, or that compared to sports and other? And it's always about reflexes and all. And I get the feeling that it's more about the idea that the people are no longer capable of, from a mental perspective, to keep this level up. And I mean, we have some Counter-Strike players that are in their 30s, but those are, from their personalities, like powerhouses, and they will survive probably everything in the world. But what, open question to anybody, would you say, if we would live in an ideal world where esports is structured and all, that due to the mental health, players would play longer?
I'll quickly add to that before we get I'll just put a fact on the table, and then Mia and Martina will probably break it down for me also to understand better. But I can speak from experience. I have peaked later than earlier, for instance, in my career, and I ended up winning the world championship twice when I was 27 maybe, or 28, which is rather old in the esports standards. And I definitely started playing my best Dota later than earlier. So to me, I experienced that it had nothing to do with age or reflexes. But I'll leave the floor to our experts to help us break it down.
I would reply to that question of retiring and why. So quite often people are lacking motivation, and that comes from abusing the mental side or overlooking that too long. So a player needs to feel good and be in a very good and healthy state of mind to be able to perform. So and losing motivation is something that follows quite often when we are getting stressed or worn out or having too many setbacks or not having a healthy relationship with the rest of the team. So it's more about finding the balance, and therefore it's more joyous, and therefore we have better results. Because the fact is that as long as you're having fun, usually you're playing better. And then if you're kind of like starting to lose that, or you can see the cost of things affecting it, meaning that if you have a career, you have to give up a lot of other things to be able to do that. So it's more about that, the balance, instead of the reflexes itself.
To add to that, I would like to kind of bring to mind this theory or concept that has been stuck or connected to esports, which is like the results here and now. I think that has a big impact as well on how people approach exercise, scrims, pracs, or just getting better. Is that I'm in this club, I'm in this team, I'm afraid, what's going to happen if we don't reach the peak, if we don't win. So therefore, I'm going to train more to achieve more in the short term, which is not always correct, right? But this idea has been stuck in this esports industry that the more you do, the better you get. And then here come us and say, okay, how do you do that? What is more? With all of these questions, right? And we're trying to destruct these great concepts that have been a part of industry for forever, since the beginning, by trying to bring awareness. Awareness is a key word here, I understand, of like, how can we do this better, right? That's one thing. And the other thing, I believe that in the industry there is a great self-fulfilling prophecy in so many aspects. For example, I've heard players say, I need to do a lot and like raise up to my highest standards now because soon I will retire. I'm like, who told you that? Like, where did you read that? Where's the manual which says that when you're 26, 7, 8, you have to go and retire, right? What I feel is like there's many things, and we do this with players as well. It's like, no, they're gamers, they're not going to do this. Give them a chance. I think we need to be more open to breaking these chains, to taking a different road. It's pretty scary when we come and say all of these things from traditional sports, from like scientific research, and say, look, it seems like this is the road that is more optimized, better, but it has never been done. Okay, who's going to make this decision? It takes a lot of guts. You need to be bold. You need to have great leaders who are going to give a yes to all of these suggestions, because it hasn't been done so much in a practical term, right? It has been done everywhere else, but until you see it in your own field many times, it's going to be difficult to take this road. And those who do are exposing themselves a lot, right? By taking these decisions that seem to be bold, seem to be at the forefront, seem to be very risky, right? But again, self-fulfilling prophecy in the sense that it has been done this way, let's just continue in this way, and kind of giving an excuse because of all of the behaviors that you have been observing for the recent period of time. So yeah, I think we as an industry, everyone who works here needs to be more bold, needs to give more chance, that we actually take this road and trust the process. I really do believe so.
That is a great answer, and highlights the part where is it written? It's nowhere written that you have to retire with 27 or whatever. I'm always remembering the Warcraft 3 times, where it was obvious that the Asian community was grinding, and the European community said, no, I will not grind 40 hours per day. I will not do that. I will take my time and think and strategize and think about how to battle the others. And it's still something that may be lost a bit in the esports time. So looking at the time, moving on to some questions, besides several SEP calls in the chat, we had some quite interesting one. One thing I find fascinating, because that's something I see a lot, especially recently in League of Legends, the whole issues with family members and all. How should a gamer or esportler deal with trolls leaving highly negative comments with no regards for others' well-being? They are quite brutal. What are you telling them? Because it's something which is sadly typical for esports at the moment. Or how did Seb deal with it?
Well, I think it might be different for every individual, and also this may be the opportunity to highlight something we haven't yet, which is, I think, that maybe the trickiest or one of the very tricky aspects of what Mia and Martina do on a daily basis is finding a way to address the team and at the same time addressing the individuals, because everybody has a very different personality. Some people might find, for instance, they might get completely broken if they expose themselves too much to the very negative and harsh criticism that they get online. And some people might even find fuel in there and find motivation to prove these people wrong, or, so it's very different. So I think the step one and very crucial is awareness. Like, understand yourself, understand what it does to you. Does it impact you at all? And if yes, in what aspect? And if no, is there something you're missing? Maybe it's a way to, because of course the common example we could think of is somebody reading very harsh comments online and getting broken by it. That's an example. But I found myself and found players, for instance, that were looking to rebuild motivation and fire after finding success. And actually opening the door to criticism was a way to build that fire again. So it really, to me, it's mostly about raising awareness, understanding what your relationship to these items, and then, picking what fits and leaving what doesn't out of the equation. Some players have to block the socials completely because they do not know how to deal with it and they get destroyed by it. And maybe some have a healthier approach, maybe more distance, and are able to use it to their best ability.
If I may add something, first, I want to apologize for the very romantic lighting. The conference room decided the meeting is over because I'm sitting so still, so it went to power saving mode. But also to add on that is that I'm always trying to teach my players to have a good professional image, so that you understand that there's the professional side of you who is on the spotlight, and then there's the private side. So when you're facing critique, it's not you as a whole person. It's just a part of you, and that's just the part that's visible for everyone else. So it's important to, because in some occasions when the player is doing a lot of streaming and it's constantly around that environment, they start thinking that that's equally as them. So if I'm doing good at and if I'm successful, then I'm a good person. No, it has nothing to do with that. You're still a good person, although you would really be bad. And also, although you would be the best one in the world, it doesn't make you necessarily a better human being. So teaching that, and also I have absolutely zero tolerance for bullying, and we should all have that. So it will be, hopefully in the future, the change will happen, and for us also to talk about it and make it as difficult and as comfortable for these people to behave in that manner. It's also about having right values. And the third thing is having resilience. A player with good mental health are much more resilient towards these external factors that might be distracting, compared to a burnout, English is sometimes difficult, tired person who has been doing everything too much and hasn't had time to recuperate. An evil or a negative comment online might then have too much of an impact. So resilience comes from mental well-being, and that again protects us. So that's again my 5 cents, and I will now drop the mic.
Yeah, it's quite interesting to hear that, and it's something we can easily expand to everything everybody's doing with the everybody's online, everybody's on Twitter and all. So dealing with that is extremely important. I have a question from Alex MS, even though it's focused on OG mostly, but the underlying question is interesting as well, where also Martina can say something. Did you notice a notable difference in the mental health of the players going into a tournament and during a tournament?
Difference in mental health before and then in the tournament. Well, there are so many variables that I can think of. I'm trying to think of the last examples. I mean, again, it's so hard to give a general answer. Many times we mentioned the individual differences. I can also think in different teams that I've worked with. And
yeah, maybe to add on that, more on the idea how the experienced players are dealing with and the rookies. So, yeah. I mean, especially MADLions is known for rookies and picking them up relatively quickly. So maybe they're the difference.
Definitely. That's the difference and specification that I was looking for, right? Because the experience is completely different. If you look at our LEC team, they like to call themselves psychos, and they just enjoy stage and they just want as much pressure and eyes. They don't care. The word about them, that team is fun, right? And this is something that we are striving to, integrate in all of our teams. That the basis is fun. But then when we look at, for example, we picked up a full rookie team in our Counter-Strike team, right? And I mean, it was in the period of coronavirus pandemic, and it still is very limited tournament experiences and similar. But I can then think also of our MADLions Madrid team, League of Legends, and just recently we had the Iberian Cup, which was the first stage presence that I've been to after a long time. I think last time was Katowice, and that wasn't even stage because we were in a studio inside. So the last thing that I remember is the Iberian Cup. And there we also had we had rookies, and one in specific, how I seen the difference on the same stage, of more experienced players and rookies is noticeable, right? What really matters a lot is that before these tournaments, we talk about this. When we're in the tournaments, we talk about this, because I've seen many times this resilience coming out wrong, I will say. That is to say, I'm tough, I'm strong, this is not going to affect me. I'm tough, I'm strong, and then they come to the stage and no one can help you there. You're by yourself, right? So it's better to address the possibilities before, talk about the tools that they can use on stage, because again, you step on that stage, it's what you know, and that's it, right? No one can jump to help you. But that's something I've noticed, and it also has to do with all the players are male, and that's also a tricky topic, right? Emotions, do I show that, what's acceptable, how am I raised, what's my culture behind the society, all of these impacts. So it's really important to already mention, nerves, feeling nervous is actually good for you up to some extent, right? What are you experiencing right now? Just before the player goes to the stage, or experiencing it a day before, stepping on the stage and trying to, visualize, okay, what can happen here tomorrow? And talk about it, and saying that it's fine if you feel the nerves. It's fine if you feel scared, it's fine, right? Rather than saying, I'm the toughest, I'm the strongest, and then they go and break, which is a really common impact that stage presence can have on a rookie that is closed off and that is showing this resilience in a fake way, in a sense, right? So what I like to mention, a concept of anti-fragility from Talim Nasseb's book. I really like how they frame it. Like fragile is on one side of the spectrum, then there's resilience, which is medium, and then we have anti-fragility, which means that you are actually benefiting from the tough experiences. I'm benefiting from all of them looking at me and booing at me. I love that. Like Seb has mentioned, these comments give me strength, give me power, give me more motivation, right? So resilience is midway, but then we go to the anti-fragility, and this is where you know that the player can just benefit from whatever trouble arises, right? Because they will know how to bounce back.
This is absolutely crucial, and I'd like to add to that. I like the image of going to a stage as a player, and so there is a lot already for you to look at. There's a lot of distractions. Also, Mia mentioned that, and I think this is where all the answers kind of unite, in the sense that players get to they tend to get distracted by whatever the audience, how the stage looks, the pressure, the comments, the casters, so much sounds and lights and you name it. But being aware and accepting, like understanding and accepting how you feel. Do I feel nervous? Do I feel pressure? Are my my heart rate like pumping? Am I feeling too calm? Is it weird? Is it unusual for me to feel calm? I feel like players, I've never almost encountered a player that did this by himself, or it's like 1 out of 100. But from my experience, I've seen all of them benefit heavily from kind of anchoring themselves in the moment, understanding how they feel, accepting how they feel also. Well, this is how I feel. There's no way for me to change it. I can lie to myself about it and tell myself that I am indeed excited, even though I'm not, or I feel super nervous. I don't feel nervous at all, even though I'm shaking inside. These things, they have to be acknowledged, accepted, and dealt with. And this is something I would say players usually fail to do. So when they end up, fixing that, it's a game changer.
That's brilliant to hear. When I play Overwatch, my Apple Watch is showing me my heart rate, and at some point it even mentioned go slower, do something against it. But that's one thing I have 1,000 questions, so that's something I always happy about, even though we cannot answer everything. But one thing I'm interested, as we have also the idea of more going to the amateur level and more in the broader perspective. So we are talking about the top on the top, and they can build a structure and all. So as a final question, what would you say or give as advice what an amateur team or an upcoming amateur player can actually do to change the habit and change the habit immediately, where they can say, okay, we can implement that and we can do that as we don't have the money to get someone outside. Maybe Martina first?
Sure. So today, in this wonderful world of internet, there's nothing that you cannot find. I'll just start with that. You can go to university, you can go to masters, or you can YouTube your way out, Google your way out. I think that there's so much knowledge that you can find, even if you have low resources, which can be time, money, whatever, right? So what I would say to amateur teams, to amateur players is like, embody the pro player. Start living it as if it was already happening, right? And start acting the role. Already, you can find, again, on the internet, you can find examples. You can read about these people. You can read about their schedules. You can figure it out. And they just start, taking bits and pieces out there to create your path, right? That doesn't mean that you go 10 hours playing because, in Asia, they play for more or similar like that. Your path, right? Because everyone is different. You have different needs. So start with awareness. That was mentioned here so many times. I mean, dig in the books. I think it's readily available in the internet era that you can find many things. Just embody this, work on it. Again, don't go to extremes, because what is the percentage of players who become pro? That's also another thing. Now, on the way, is this ever going to be a waste, all of this learning? Never. Because I've seen more of this knowledge, like it's applicable in every sphere of life. That's why we always say, like, this is for you to get better as a person. This will never be useless information for your life. So yeah, I think that the key is in the knowledge, and with knowledge comes awareness, and then you can start implementing things on yourself and building your path.
I think that sounds like a very good way to get started. So I don't want to confuse people and add something to that. And also just following that, gathering information from sources that are reliable. There's a lot of information out there that's not reliable. And then commit. Whatever you decide to do in the world, commit to it. It might take some time until you can see the change, but please do commit. So that's my thoughts.
Okay, Seb, final words?
Final words. The mental aspect is, if I had to name one thing that was a game changer, if I had to focus on one of the things, whether it is, practice the technique, whether it is your teammates, whether it is the organization you end up playing for, mental side of things, I'd leave it all out and I'll keep the mental side of things. I cannot emphasize how important this is to competing at any level, truly. And I feel like in esports, it's probably the field in which there is the most progress to be made. And every time I got the chance to meet high-level competitors from other fields that weren't video games, I realized that even for them, it is crucial. And something tells me that in esports, it takes even more space. It's a very extreme difference and game changer. Like, it's truly a topic that has to be covered and has to be respected enough for players to either improve their performance, but also the longevity that we also tackled. I think it's entirely linked to that.
I really like the wording of you using it as it's the game changer, where in the end, it is the one thing that makes the difference in the end. And not only for you personally, I mean, as an HR person, I'm always happy about the idea that an employee is for a long time in your company and is doing his or her job quite well. But it's something where, as Seb is also saying again, it is something where the mental health issue or the mental health is the important part, especially in esports. And therefore, I'm really grateful for the sense where you were saying, I didn't peak at the beginning, I peaked later on. So I needed that commitment. I needed that development, the help from Mia in your situation, and that is something where we need to work on that, and it needs to be an integral part of any professional esports, and as well, and I hope at some future in amateur sports as well, where kids are playing at a team, having some environment for that. So again, as we're a bit over time, really thank you, Mia, Martina, and Seb for sticking around, giving your insights, showing how important this topic is, and that we are still have enough, a lot of space to fill. And I mean, we have with Mia and Martina two of the most experts in that field. But there are thousands of other teams, and we need to get that done. So we create a sustainable esports system. And as, again, one word, it's all stakeholders who should do their part in that. So thank you for that. I think we will have a break now for 25 minutes and we'll continue with some panels. So everybody out there, thank you for sticking around.
Action 7 finds out, stop,